People really, really, really don't like victims of sex crimes. They don't. They hate when we open our mouths and they hate when we tell our truths because always the truth is going to be a lot messier than their idyllic version of a white woman sadly crying. You know what I mean? A lot of people care more about the concept of SA survivors more than the actual survivors, more than the actual people, and thus they will subconsciously disregard anyone who falls outside of their notion of a pure, perfect victim, especially if the trauma you have gained from your essay is not the trauma that they agree with or find palatable. I've noticed this personally the most with hypersexual victims or victims who end up gaining kinks or fiction preferences thanks to their trauma. I think your average layman learned about the concept of the cycle of abuse and decided that must apply to literally every person who is not a fragile, crying white woman. Literally. I keep saying fragile, crying white woman because this is what I think they want when they imagine a perfect sexual assault victim. They imagine someone delicate and gentle whose tears have emotional weight, but they're never in the way. And they're just so sad and they're so wistful. And, you can gently hold their hand and tell them everything's going to be okay. And they'll be quiet and they probably won't make a fuss. But if they do make a fuss, it's a very gentle, sweet fuss. People don't like it when victims are loud, or are messy, or wear our scars right there on our chest. People really hate it when SA victims are proud sexual beings that reclaim our bodies in very intense, graphic ways. People hate it when SA victims are repeat victims. People absolutely hate it when you're a repeat victim. They're never gonna believe you. I would know from experience. It's just very frustrating because you will never be believed by someone for some trivial reason that is completely out of your control, and it only gets worse the more queer and weird and freaky and honestly fun that you are. Especially if you're an artist, especially if you try to make art about your experiences, if you're a writer, if you're a reader who wants to read about things that comfort you about your experience, oh my god. At the end of the day, we all need to remember that sexual assault is rarely ever about sex and is almost always about power, including structural power, misogyny, racism, transphobia, homophobia, etc. A lot of sexual abuse is less about the sexual and more about the abuse. While sex or sexuality is the vehicle for the abuse, at the end of the day, it really is just another form of physical abuse. Very invasive, very painful physical abuse. Which means then that when us victims perhaps focus on the sex part, or heal with the sex part, or come out a little bit wonky on the other end with the sex part, people are so upset about that. Ugh, I came in to record this episode with a much more structured concept in mind, but really I just feel a need to vent for a second. It is damn hard being a victim of sexual assault in the world, let alone on the internet, let alone as a queer person. Let alone as a queer person who loves dark fiction, who loves creating dark fiction. It's just kind of hard sometimes. I'm a horror writer. I like writing horror. It's what I do. Love a little bit of murder, love zombies. There's a lot of undead people in all the works I make. A lot of metaphors for having autonomy over your body ripped away from you. A lot of metaphors for a lack of control on, the concept of living. And that just seems to put a lot of people off and make a lot of people not freaking believe me. And that's just kind of exhausting. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not, because many other people in the support groups I've attended throughout my life, especially the people, like I said, who were hypersexual, who are queer, who have reclaimed their sexuality in some way through kink or fiction or otherwise, we all get treated like garbage. And I think it's genuinely because if society was to listen to us, if society was to sit with victims that are messy and imperfect, then we would have to really sit with what causes sex crimes in the first place. And it's never sex. You know what I mean? Sex doesn't cause sex crimes. As I stated previously, it's oppressor dynamics, it's power, it's money, it's racial and gender inequality. And people aren't ready to have those conversations because it means they have to deconstruct and confront a lot of parts of their everyday life, and they don't want to actually have to sacrifice anything for us. They'd rather just blame us, honestly, and get it over with.